and welcome everyone to the Rational Living Show. I am your host, Dr. Aldo Pucci. This is a weekly show that is broadcast live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern United States time. So thankful everyone could join us today. I'm president of the National Association of Cognitive Behavioral Therapists. I developed rational living therapy, which is an approach to cognitive behavioral therapy. Rational living therapy focuses on the fact that our thoughts cause our feelings and behaviors, not people and situations and things and events, but how we think about people and situations, the things and events. I'm also author of 2 books, The Client's Guide to Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, which is now in its 2nd edition, and Feel the Way You Want to Feel No Matter What. You can find both of those on Amazon.com. This is an interactive show. If you're listening on Podbean, you can use the Podbean app to call in with your questions. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. And if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, X, or LinkedIn, you may type in your questions and I will do my best to answer them. Okay. All right. Terrific. Now, the title of this week's episode is How to Stop Overthinking. How to Stop Overthinking. Has anyone ever accused you of overthinking at times? Have you ever thought of yourself that sometimes you think too much about things? You know, it occurs to me that the concept of overthinking is based on the idea that there is a certain amount of thinking about something that is okay. And if you think more than that about it, you are overthinking. I think that approach is a bit flawed. The problem is not too much thinking. The problem is irrational thinking that causes a person to not be confident enough in their decision making. For example, you are thinking about leaving your job to pursue something else. You're unsure about your ability to decide what is the best thing for you to do. You keep analyzing and analyzing the facts without the assurance that you think you need to make the decision. This delays your making your final decision. Now, delaying making your decision might not be a problem unless you miss a deadline or miss out on something that you wanted, maybe because you missed the deadline. And so there are a couple of reasons for this. The first is a demand for certainty, a demand for certainty. For example, I must be sure before I act. I have to have a guarantee that it will work out. I can't make a mistake. I have to know with absolute certainty that I'm making the right decision. There's only one problem with that, and that is there are no guarantees. Certainty does not exist. Every decision in life involves uncertainty. And why? Because decisions are necessarily about the future. Sometimes a decision might be about something 5 seconds in the future. Other times it's much longer than that. Sometimes, like the decision of who to marry, is a lifelong decision. And so getting married and what career you're going to pursue and what investments you might make and parenting, whether to have children or not. These are all decisions that a person makes that involves uncertainty. And people often say that people who wait for certainty often become paralyzed by analysis. But in reality, that is not the case. It's not analysis that paralyzes people. It is fear that paralyzes people. Okay. So the insistence that a person have a guarantee that that the right decision a good outcome will occur from their decision, is what prevents them from continuing to act on their decision. And then we have catastrophizing. Questions such as, what if this goes badly? Or what if people judge me? Or what if I regret it forever, the decision that I've made? Now, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, in terms of anxiety, the question, what if, is not the problem. The answer is usually the problem. It's the answer that creates anxiety for people. The only time that the question, what if, is a problem is when it's delusional. For example, what if Martians are reading my mind? Then the question itself is a problem. It's also important, though, to count the costs of doing something. It is possible to underthink something. So it's important to consider what the possible and likely consequences of making the wrong decision are. Then ask yourself, could I take it? Could I stand it? Would it be the end of me if it didn't work out? Or would it only be an inconvenience? Maybe a great inconvenience, but still just that, an inconvenience. And you see, really, that's the heart of it. The reason people think that they need a guarantee that a decision will work out well for them is because they think they couldn't stand it if it did not. But it doesn't have to be a catastrophe for you to decide that you're not willing to take a chance of doing something wrong. Okay. All right. So, catastrophic thinking, the prediction of catastrophe. Then we have the problem of confusing thinking with control. Confusing thinking with control. Remember, this is a call-in show, and so please feel free to call in on the Podbean app if you have questions. Let me see here. Okay, good. Or you can type in your questions or comments as well if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or X. So, confusing thinking with control. What often gets labeled as overthinking usually is worried thinking. And really, this is the heart of what we call magical worry. If I worry about it, it will not happen. So, the act of worrying usually is the act of um, thinking a great deal about something. So when people worry, they usually do not worry for 15 seconds. They worry over and over and over about something, and what they notice after a while, or usually non-consciously, is this: they worry about something, it doesn't happen. They worry about it, it doesn't happen. They worry about it, doesn't happen, until after a while a person has become so rewarded with worrying by the fact that their feared event doesn't occur, that it's like they come to the conclusion, if I worry, it will not happen. And that's why we call it magical worry, as if your mental activity by itself will keep problematic situations from occurring. And so what we teach is worry is only mental activity. Your mental activity by itself does not influence your environment. Your mental activity by itself does not keep bad things from happening. Okay? It has only seemed that way because you worry and what you worried about didn't happen. Okay, so after a while, what happens is people become afraid not to worry because they view worry as being protective. So what we teach folks is to refuse to worry because worry has never protected you or your loved ones. So replace worry with concern. Know what you want: the welfare for yourself, the welfare of your loved ones. Um, if something seems to be threatening your welfare, their welfare, be concerned about it, and then act on your concern. But just worrying about it, the most that'll do is help make your gastroenterologist house payment. Okay. And by the way, if you are a mental health professional and you'd like training in rational living therapy, please visit cbtonlinetraining.com. That's cbtonlinetraining.com. Okay. Now, you can also make use of the three rational questions that we utilize in rational living therapy to analyze your thinking, to analyze the thinking related to decisions that you are working at making. The first rational question is my thinking based on fact as best I can know it? Okay. Is my thinking based on fact? In other words, is what I'm thinking the way things really are? Second question is, does my thinking help me to achieve my goals? And that's why it's important to know what your short term and long term goals are to be able to answer that question. Is my thinking rational for me? And the third rational question is, does my thinking help me to feel the way I want to feel? So, first and foremost, rational thinking is based on fact, not wishful thinking, not hopeful thinking, not pessimistic thinking, but what the facts actually are as best you can know them. Okay? But we cannot, with absolute certainty, know what will occur in the future. So we make the best prediction we can based on the facts that we have. Okay? And so, given that, I encourage you to do several things. One is accept uncertainty, work at accepting uncertainty. Replace the belief I must be certain with I prefer certainty, but I can tolerate uncertainty. You see, the fact is, confidence grows after decisions, not before, right? Isn't it interesting how people want to have a lot of confidence in being able to do something before they actually do it? Now, they might predict that based on my attributes and the attributes of others who have achieved this goal, based on my knowledge, I predict that I'll probably achieve this goal. But your actual true certainty, confidence in seeing that you can do it will only occur after you start doing it. Okay. Second, limit thinking time. Now, of course, you don't want to underthink something, rush into a decision without considering the facts. But often people will because of their worrisome thoughts, they will spend much more time thinking about something than they need to because of their feared consequence. So sometimes it's helpful to put a limit on it. So I'm going to make this decision, for example, within 1 week. I'm going to give myself 1 week to gather the data, and then I'm going to make that decision. Now, of course, you can always modify that if it seems like there is more information out there for you to consider. Okay, so and nowadays with artificial intelligence and all, it's so easy to gather information very quickly. But again, nothing you read will provide a guarantee for you. Okay. Third, ask one powerful question instead of asking what if it goes wrong. Ask yourself, if it did go wrong, could I handle it? Could I handle it? And unless it's something that could kill you, of course you can handle it. You might not like it, you might dislike it very much. And sometimes people will decide, the risk. Yeah, sure, there's this person across town who's selling this $500,000 business. And if it went well, we would do really well with it. However, there's enough information that suggests that we might not do well to decide against pursuing that. So a person doesn't have to think that there would be a catastrophe if they were to fail at something, but they just might decide that they would rather not go through the trouble of having that kind of debt and then needing to deal with it in some way. Okay. The fourth, act despite uncertainty. So actually act even though you're not certain. Action helps to correct this so called overthinking. Because what happens when people delay well, first of all, when people act, what happens is their brain comes to understand I can handle life. I can handle setbacks. I can handle disappointments. I can handle when things do not work out well. Instead, inaction, refusing to make a firm decision on something and act on it, teaches your brain that this must be dangerous. Otherwise, I wouldn't be avoiding it. Okay. And so act despite uncertainty. Gather information, refuse to rush into something without counting the costs and gathering the facts. But then ultimately act on whatever decision you make, as long as it's rational for you to do so. Fifth, accept imperfect decisions. Accept imperfect decisions. Every decision has trade offs. Every decision has a trade off. The goal is not the perfect decision, the goal is a reasonable, rational decision. Okay. So, people who are confident are not people who always make perfect decisions. They are people who trust themselves to handle whatever happens, including whatever negative things might happen as a result of their decision. Okay. All right. So let's take a look here. Some of the questions that we have. All right. All right. So someone asked, "How do I stop replaying?" Whoops. Okay. How do I stop replaying conversations in my head? All right. Well, the first thing to do is to ask yourself, why am I replaying this conversation in my head over and over again? What am I worried about? What is my fear? What do I think will be the outcome of this conversation in my head? Uh, will the outcome be an actual problem for me, or is it just the idea of it? And secondly, if it will be a problem for me, or it could be a problem for me, is it something that would be an inconvenience, or is it something that will be the end of me? And the only thing that will be the end of you is the thing that kills you. Otherwise, you can stand it, you can take it, you might not like it. So it's the difference between living your life in fear and living your life in a more calm, rational way. Okay. Okay, someone else asked, how do I know if I'm thinking carefully or overthinking? Thanks for that question. How do I know if I'm thinking carefully or overthinking? Well, one of the ways to do that is to use the rational questions, to examine, is my thinking based on fact? But does my thinking help me to achieve my goals? And does my thinking help me to feel the way I want to feel? But another thing to consider is, how are you feeling emotionally and what are you doing? Okay. If you are thinking carefully, you are more likely to be doing that calmly. You're calmly assessing the facts, data, possibilities, and working at coming to a decision, the best decision you can make based on what you know currently. Worried thinking is one that it focuses on the fear of the consequences of being wrong, of making a bad decision. And so, like I said, the problem isn't the amount of thinking; it's what you are thinking, and what you think might lead you to think a lot about it, because you're never satisfied with the conclusion that you come to, because you're too afraid to actually come to a conclusion. See my point? So that is the problem. That's what needs to be corrected. Another question. Let's see here. All right, great. Another question is, what if I make a decision I regret later? Well, if that's the case, I say welcome to the club. I challenge you to find anyone to talk to anyone, unless they're 5 years old, that will tell you that never made a decision that they regret later. So gather the evidence, make the best decision that you can make based on the evidence, and then if it turns out that in fact the decision didn't work out so well, that there were things that you hadn't considered or what have you, then ask yourself, what do I need to do to remedy this difficulty that I'm having now? And working at accepting the fact that you made a decision that didn't work out, and then move forward. Work around whatever problems are the result of that decision. But there's a saying: "Nothing ventured, nothing gained." Right. The fourth question is, why do intelligent people overthink more? All right. Well, I'm not so sure how much that statement is accurate. However, I can tell you this much: the more intelligent a person is, the greater capacity they have to be aware of possibilities, and the greater potential they have the greater their ability to be aware of possibilities, the more they might consider those possibilities when things don't seem quite right. Okay, so someone, for example, might have a lump on their arm, and they think nothing of it because they're not aware of the various things that it could be that could be really problematic for the person. Okay. And so the more intelligent a person is, the easier it is for them to talk themselves into thinking and behaving irrationally. Okay. So the problem is not intelligence. The problem is not knowing how to think and behave rationally consistently. Right. So intelligence gives you the capacity to think and behave irrationally, even more than those who aren't quite as intelligent. But that intelligence does not protect a person, is not a safeguard that protects you from behaving irrationally, from thinking irrationally. That's just not the case. Okay? As a matter of fact, some of the most irrationally thinking people I've ever met in my life have been those with very high IQs. Last question, unless other people have questions, is how can I sleep when my mind won't stop thinking? All right. Well, keep in mind that your mind is not just something that acts on its own, right? You direct your mind, and so the one of the first things you can do is ask yourself: is there anything that I can do about this thing that I'm concerned about now, here at 11 o'clock at night? Is there, even if I came up with a solution to this problem, is there anything I could do about it now? No. Okay. So, is there any problem with me sleeping, getting a good night's rest, and waking up in the morning? Is it okay to delay thinking about this until the morning? Or is this a situation like my house is on fire and I need to get out? Okay. So if it will not create a problem for you to delay thinking about it for 8 hours or so, then allow yourself to do that. Distract yourself with something else if you're having a difficult time uh, uh, diverting your attention away from it. But that's it begins with giving yourself rational permission to think about something else or to just fall asleep, because it's not as though you have a situation that requires you to come up with a solution immediately. Okay, or come to a decision immediately. You see, if your house were on fire at 11 o'clock at night, it would be a good idea to make a quick decision about getting out of the house, right? Otherwise, most things in life can wait until the morning, all right? And as a matter of fact, by allowing yourself to get a good night's sleep, you'll probably be in a better position to make use of your intelligence and your knowledge and your resources, etc., to well, two things to come to a good rational decision about something. And the less fatigued you are, the more likely it is that you will believe, sincerely believe, that you could handle any problems that come your way. Okay. All right, great. Let's see if we have any other questions here. Okay, no. Well, this is the Rational Living Show, and it's broadcast every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern United States time. Make sure, please, to share this podcast with your friends and your family and fellow therapists if you're a therapist. And also, please visit our website at nacbt.org and also cbtonlinetraining.com. It looks like we have a question. So, if I can't come up with a solution, what's going to prevent me from lying there trying to come up with a solution? I'm not sure. So, let me read that again. So, if I can't come up with a solution, what's going to prevent me from lying there? Yeah, nothing, right? Trying to come up with no, exactly, nothing. So therefore, you might as well just lie there, and if for example, if you're a believer in the Lord, you could, instead of worrying and all, you can pray, right? Pray to God to help you with to make the decision with whatever it is that you're concerned about. Um, and so you could do that instead, for sure. All right. Okay. Thank you all for uh, watching our Rational Living show, and look forward to seeing you. And by the way, the next episode will be on next Monday at 7 p.m., as I will be out of town on Wednesday. Look forward to seeing you all then. Everyone, take care.